Roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Ms. Phillips.
Here.
Mr. Rue, Mr. Copeland.
Here. Mr. Manager.
Yes. Before I do an introduction of our work session tonight, Commissioner, I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Dave Estrop, who would like to do a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Over the past week, it became known to us that we had lost Mark Allen. Mark, as you know, has been instrumental to this effort. It was a mission for him. We will miss him. We will miss his expertise and skills. But most of all, to be so close to the finish line and not be able to cross it, I'm sure was a disappointment for Mark. But we thank him and we honor him tonight, and I would ask that we take a moment of silence to remember Mark and all he contributed to this effort of cleaning up the Tremont City barrel fill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Estrop and Commission. So tonight we have one item for our work session, and that is an update from the US EPA on the Tremont Barrel Fill Cleanup Project. With us tonight are several guests of EPA and this project. I'll do my best to pronounce their names correctly, but we have Adrian Palomake, we have Jenny Polster, Bob Rule, Jeff Daniel, Joe Carter, and Jeff Berniarski.
Nice.
Is that pretty good?
No, let's ask them.
Yeah. So, but with that, I'll turn it over to Adrian and Jenny, who will start the presentation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Heck. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Representatives. Thank you very much for inviting us tonight to give an update on the site. We're very excited to be here today and tomorrow in Springfield. We're looking forward to sharing with everybody the status of the site and what are the upcoming activities. So with that, I'd like to get started with the presentation. So here are the names. I know Mr. Heck already mentioned some of the people that are here tonight helping on this presentation. First is my name, Adrian Palomake. I'm a Community Involvement Coordinator with US EPA. I'm the Community Involvement Coordinator for the site, for the Tremont City Barrel site. And also we have with us Jenny Polster, the EPA Remedial Project Manager. We have Bob Rule from the RISA 2 group. And we also have a few other people here that are helping support the project. We have Jeff Daniels, a RISA 2 contractor. And we also have Joe Carter and Jeff Berneski, who are EPA technical contractors are here as well. So they're seated back there. So with that, I'll get started with the presentation. And I just wanted to share with everybody a few acronyms that we're going to be mentioning throughout the meeting, just in case somebody's not familiar with them, that they can see what they are. Basically, CD just is the short acronym for consent decree, which is the legal agreement that US EPA and the potential responsible parties have to do the remedial design and the remedial action for the site, so the cleanup for the site and the investigation. And that's all entailed in the consent decree. We also, we're going to talk about the statement of work, or SOW, and that's where most of the information regarding the plan and the activities are delineated. That's Appendix C of the consent decree. We'll also talk about the pre-design investigation, which is actually the the phase where we're currently in the process. It's part of the remedial design, the RD. So basically they're checking all the technical specifications on how to do the cleanup, and that's what the remedial design entails. Then we'll talk about the remedial action, which is the cleanup itself, RA. And then operations and maintenance, which is just the as its name entails, basically the maintenance and the operations of the site, O&M. And then just WP, which is the abbreviation for work plan. So there are different plans that will be mentioned, and WP would be after that. So for the agenda tonight, we have 5 main things that we wanted to share with everybody. We'll start with this. Right now, we're in the introduction. We'll provide a brief overview of the site, the consent decree, and the statement of work. Then we'll go a little bit about the pre-design investigation, saying where we're at and what are the next steps. And I'll talk a little bit about the community engagement efforts that we have performed here related to the site. And finally, well, actually, I know for normally the format of the commissioners meeting, they may ask us questions, but it's not going to be open to the public, if I understand correctly, as a normal way of procedure. So with that, I'll start with the introduction. So this is the location of the site over in just about 1.5 miles west of Tremont City and about 3.5 miles northwest of Springfield, in case somebody was wondering where the site is located. And this is just a little bit of closer map of the location. And from this point forward, I'd like to have the remedial project manager, Jenny Poster, to provide an update on the site and the overview of the site.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's here today that came out to listen to this very, very important update. I know EPA has been out here for 20 years, over 20 years now, roughly. I've been involved since 2019, so I heard there's a lot of history about the site and that you haven't heard from us in a while. But what I do want to commit is from this point forward, you are going to start to hear from us very regularly, both Adrian and I as representatives of EPA and Bob as a representative of RESA, who is a potentially responsible party group in the consent decree that has signed up to pay for and implement this remedy. Just a quick background about me, since you will be seeing a lot of me. I have worked with EPA now for almost 20 years. I was with the Water Division up through 2015, so I have worked on some sites and with communities in Ohio. One of the big ones I worked on in water was with Akron. In 2015, I moved over to the Superfund Division. 2015, I moved to Superfund, and in 2019, I became involved in the site. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm going to slow down just a second. Let's see. One of the big goals that I had for this site when I became involved with it was to repair the relationship with EPA and with the community. I know that there's a lot of historic mistrust with some of the decisions that have been made, the amount of transparency that's been made available. On my end, I unfortunately got involved during a period where we were in consent decree negotiations, and those discussions are privileged. So I was hearing very regularly from community representatives, Marilyn, Larry, Brian Heck, Charlie Patterson, who's not here, what's going on. And, all I could say is I promise you we haven't walked away from negotiations, but I can't share anything else. So I know how frustrating that is. But the great news is once a consent decree was entered, we are at a period of time where we can be a lot more transparent with the decisions that are being made at the site. And Adrian and I and Bob are all very committed to make sure that you're aware of everything that goes on during every step of the process. One of the first things that we did to demonstrate that transparency was we came out here to have a meeting with local government leaders. I know many of you up here participated in those meetings. We had people for Safe Water present there. We had local representatives from the Clark County Commissioners, from German Township. And one of the things that we came up with was how do we communicate information at the site so folks know what's going on? How are they able to raise concerns to us with what's going on, during key parts of the process? And we came up with a framework that was memorialized in a charter that was finalized this last March. And I just want to go through what the goals were of that, because I think everyone in this room is committed to those goals. And I want to just really emphasize that, Adrian and I as representatives of EPA, and one of those first goals and the objectives of the charter were to ensure response activities at the Tremont City Barrel Fill site protect human health and environment, taking into account the Chapman Creek Mad River Buried Valley Aquifer, and Great Miami River Basin. Another objective is to promote an effective cleanup design and construction process through the remedial process required by the Record of Decision and 2018 explanation of significant difference in the consent decree. And then our last goal was to provide a forum where important community concerns are articulated, understood, considered, and if appropriate, changes are incorporated. So I think we've taken a lot of meaningful steps to try to achieve these objectives so far. And, hope all of us are relatively new, I think 2019 for me, 2020 for you. You came in about 2021, 22 during CD negotiations. Hopefully we're starting fresh and on the right path forward. Let's see. So let's see, that's some background. I think we can go into just a brief overview of the site history for folks. I see a few new faces in the room that I'm not familiar with. So as Adrian pointed out, the site is in German Township. It was a site where disposal activities occurred between 1976 and 1979, and approximately 51,000 drums were buried in 50 waste cells. There was also 300,000 gallons of industrial waste that was disposed of in the landfill, and then it was closed. Right now, we believe, based on the historical information that we have available, there's about 10 to 17 feet of cover in that area. Go to the next. One more. I just wanted to give a cross section of what this looked like. So this is an example of one of those 50 waste cells I told you about. Within the waste cells, you can see that there's barrels that are stacked on top of each other, prior to that fill coming in and being closed on top of this. If you could go to the next slide. These are a few historical photos of a remedial investigation that took place. It was like roughly around 2002 to 2006. The responsible parties went in and did excavations in something that's called a test pit to look at the integrity of the drums and kind of get an idea of what these waste cells look like. So these are a few photos of those. And what's being done to address this is something that was memorialized in what EPA calls is a record of decision. The first record of decision was finalized in 2011, and it was modified in 2018 with something called an explanation of significant differences. The remedy itself is excavating and characterizing all of those 51,000 barrels of waste. The liquid waste will be disposed of off-site. And then there's also a type of waste called still bottom waste. It's very toxic type of waste. All of that will also be disposed of off-site. Anything that's solid waste will basically be segregated and contained with waste that is similar to it so that there's no, type of interactions with the waste. And then it will be disposed of in, can you go to the next slide? A RCRA Subtitle C landfill. A RCRA Subtitle C landfill is the most robust type of landfill that EPA requires. They're often called hazardous waste landfills. There's typically 2 liners in place, a leachate collection system, a very robust cap. So all of the solid waste will be disposed of in one of these types of landfills. All right. So where does that take us today? This is a brief outline of what the remedial process is. So you can see from 1999 till roughly 2002, there was a determination about whether this site specifically fits within EPA's Superfund program. The EPA Superfund program addresses different types of hazardous substances through multiple different cleanup mechanisms. And then from 2002 to 2010, there was a characterization of the site. It's called a remedial investigation and feasibility study. It's where we look at the nature and extent of contamination and potential risk and try to determine what the appropriate remedy is for the site. And as we already discussed, there were 2 remedies that were selected. The initial remedy that was then modified in 2018. And that brings us to where we are today. We negotiated with the potentially responsible parties. The name of the group is RESA 2, and the PRPs, RESA 2, have agreed to implement the remedial design and remedial action under consent decree that was lodged in federal court and entered in October of last year, which means the remedial design and cleanup can begin. One of the first things that can happen prior to doing the remedial design is something called a pre-design investigation. This is an investigation where the responsible parties are going to go out and collect additional field data, and then this field data gets input into the engineering design software that they have to try to determine, how to ensure that the landfill is really safe and robust. It can predict things like settling rate. Bob's going to talk about this in a little bit more detail shortly. And then once that data is collected, the next step of the process is called a remedial design. That's the engineering document where a lot of the questions that we've heard so far will be answered. Once that's finalized, there's the remedial action. So that's the actual shovels in the ground and the cleanup process. And then after that's implemented, there's post-construction monitoring requirements because waste is left in place. One of those post-construction monitoring requirements is to ensure that there's a well monitoring network in place to ensure that all of the aquifers in the areas remain protected. So we know that's a very big concern, and we are committed to making sure that this is done right. I'm going to go over the next one. So there's basically two main parties in the consent decree that was lodged in the court. One is RESA 2. They're the potentially responsible parties that are implementing the remedy. So under the consent decree, they are paying for and implementing the remedy by conducting a pre-design investigation. They're developing the remedial design, they're performing the remedial action, and they're operating, maintaining, and monitoring the effectiveness of the remedy. EPA's role under the consent decree is that we get to oversee everything. So we get to review documents, we get to comment on documents, we get to approve every document before it moves forward and they actually implement them. And it's not just me here looking at them. I have a whole team of experts from Tech Law. My two contractors are back here, Jeff and Joe, and then they have a whole team of experts, available to them as well. I have a very high level of confidence in Tech Law. They worked on the national contract for Department of Defense sites and Department of Energy sites. They've worked on some of the most complex remedial investigations and remedial actions across the nation, as contractors for US EPA, and they've also done a tremendous amount of response work with characterizing barrels. I have the utmost confidence that they will make sure that this is done correctly as well, in their review of the deliverables. And another aspect of it is that we have the ability to oversee the actions and the construction that's going on at the site under the consent decree so that we can monitor and supervise the work as it's ongoing and make sure that everyone is safe out there. Again, it will be EPA contractors, and we also have resources available from Ohio EPA to do this so that we can make sure it's done correctly. I also have worked with Bob at other sites, and he has worked on some very, very complex remedial designs and remedial actions in landfills. Some of them are in Ohio, so I know that he's going to be able to tell you more about it. But my experience with Bob has been, he's been very cooperative. If EPA has asked him to do something, he has been willing to do it. And I have that same confidence that we're going to have that cooperative relationship moving forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob to talk about the pre-design investigation.
Thank you, Jenny. So, as Jenny said, we are starting the remedial design phase. One of the first things we're doing is gathering some additional data to help steer the design work. So, part of it is we are obtaining some geotechnical samples so that we know the stability, what the stability will be when we construct the cell. We're looking for the geotechnical data for the our work area where we're probably going to build some sort of a pole barn or a building so that we don't work out in the weather. Will be covered when we start pulling drums out. We're also going to be doing a legal survey, a topo survey, topographic survey, so we know what the current conditions are, so that when we do complete the remedial action, we'll know what our drainage will look like. We're going to be, as Jenny said, the long-term monitoring. We're going to be doing an inventory of the well system that's currently out there. We're going to do a condition assessment of those wells to make sure that they're still usable, that something hasn't happened to them over the years. And if need be, we'll abandon those and replace them with appropriate wells in the locations necessary. And then also, we're going to be pulling a few samples for chemical analyses of some of the areas. There's a couple of ponds out there and then a drainage swale, just to make sure that we have an understanding of what has occurred over the last 10 years since we haven't been out there. So as I said, some of the soil borings, this is a photo or an aerial photograph of the drum the drum disposal area. So we're going to be doing 8 perimeter borings around it just to make sure that we understand what the soil classifications are. Do we have sands? Do we have silts? Do we have clays? Make sure that we understand what the settling may or may not be within the area. We're also going to do 4 samples within the drum area so that we understand where the drums are located. Some of the documentation shows that there's 3 feet of material over the drums, and then there's other documents that show that soils have been added afterwards. We believe, as Jenny said, that there's between 10 and 17 feet, but we want to make sure how deep it is so that when we do start digging, we don't accidentally dig into a drum the first day. We also want to evaluate those soils to see if they can be utilized for cover after we do the remedial action, or if they can be used as soils just beneficially on site. And then we're going to be doing 4 additional borings within our support area, as I talked about, for the building or the pole barn where we will be doing the work. I talked about the chemical samples. These are just the sediment samples that we're going to pull. Again, a couple from the streams there on site, and then some from the pond down on Snyder Domer Road, as well as a former borrow pit for the area. So this is just more information. As I said, we're going to be doing 8 boreholes. Some of them may be up to 80 feet deep. The geotechnical analyses are listed there on the right. Again, some of those are just grain size, whether it's a sand, silt, clay. Atterberg limits tell us what the soils actually will be doing. Can go. Again, these are the 4 boreholes over the cover soils. You can see same thing. We'll be doing the geotechnical analyses. We're also going to be doing some environmental analyses on the soils, again, just to make sure that we can beneficially reuse them on site, or if not, where they need to be placed. And then the 4 samples for our work area, again, are just the geotechnical analyses. The well monitoring, again, we want to do an inventory of those wells that currently are out there, as well as do an evaluation of their total depth, their condition. Has the well been left open? Is it usable for our future work? So we'll be doing that along with the topo surveys. Time frame for the field work, we're estimating something about 6 weeks. We're hopeful that we can get it done sooner than that, but 5 to 6 weeks. Week 1, we'll be mobilizing. We'll be looking for utilities in the area just to make sure that, again, we won't dig anything up or drill through phone lines, things like that. We'll be working on a decontamination pad as well as starting on the well inventory. During week 2, we'll be doing some of the cover borings and probably the sediment sampling for the drainage ditch. And then the longest portion of it are the actual borings around the perimeter, as well as support area.
May I ask a question? When do you anticipate starting the boring?
Starting the borings. So let me try to work into that. We're currently estimating the week of June 19th mobile. So the
Okay.
borings would probably start that following week or maybe even the week.
Okay, so June 19th, you'll get your equipment on site, mobilized, and the week after that, actually start to work on. I can't take credit for this line. A colleague of mine did, but he said to me, "Are you excited about boring?" And I said, "Actually, I'm very excited about boring." And we are. It's nice to know after all of this time, we're going to see some action on site out there as we begin the process of cleaning this. Thank you.
So,
Commissioner
just a follow-up
Patterson, why don't
question.
you come down and join Marilyn and
Will
Larry?
will you guys be on site on the 20th be due to Juneteenth, or will it actually be on site on the 19th?
It's the week of the 19th.
Thank-
Depending upon the driller's schedule, when they finish their
Sure.
their current job.
I'm not being facetious.
Yes, sir.
The 19th, 2023.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure, I wanted to hear that from you.
Yes, sir.
Not the 19th, because it's Juneteenth,
I'll take the
but
20th.
the week of.
And then what occurs after that, that initial 5 to 6 weeks that we were talking about, we'll be validating those data that we've taken. We'll start to generate the pre-design investigation report, which is a summary of all of our findings. We'll get that to EPA, and go from there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jenny.
Started to touch on schedule, so we'll keep moving in that direction. This was a timeframe that we had discussed during our last meeting. I think it was back in November. Updating this table was requested by the commissioners, so we're keeping with that. At the time, the consent decree had just been entered, and the first deliverable was due November 18th. I forget if we had the meeting before or after this, but we said when the actual delivery was done, we would go ahead and update the table. One of the things I did want to emphasize with this table was the dates in red were rough estimates. And one of the reasons for that is all the deliverables in a consent decree are triggered by approval of the previous deliverables. So for example, the pre-final 95% design, that's right there in the column 7, that's due 90 days after EPA comments on a preliminary remedial design, which is in line 6. So I can't give exact timeframes. What we can do is best back of the envelope estimates. And then once we get to that next target date, we can try to, adjust the rough estimate right now. Because we pivoted and focused a lot on community engagement during the fall, we had a little bit of a delay in getting to review some of the deliverables in the fall that we had anticipated doing on that. So as you can see here, the PDI field work we had originally anticipated in winter or spring. Right now it's happening in summer. So you'll see that I had pushed everything in lines 4, 5 through 8 down roughly by a season. Right now we're still, on target for completing this in 2025. It might be 2026. I do want to caution you, it could be longer based on what's encountered in the field. You just never know. But we will keep you updated very regularly on the status of this. And one of the things that I think you'll see is that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. This is, again, a very, very complex remedy. I know Dr. Patterson has brought this up in other discussions that with this being such a complex remedy, it's not going to be something that's designed overnight or even within a few months. This type of remedy is something that's going to take a few years to design to make sure that it's done correctly. You know, when you think about over 50,000 barrels of, you know, different types of waste, and then you think about having a robust well monitoring network and this type of, you know, landfill, you want to make sure that it's done right. So it does take time. Even less complex remedies take time, but you know, I don't want you to assume, well, what is EPA doing between now and then? So we've got these interim deliverables to show you, you know, the sequence of events so that, you know, we're working on things behind the scene. Adrian's going to talk about some of the other updates we're doing behind the scenes so that you can hear that things are going on, even if you don't hear from us, you know, for a month or two, because we're having discussions behind the scenes about what's in these reports and design. So I'm going to turn it over to Adrian.
Thank you, Jenny. So I'm gonna just mention some of the community involvement efforts that we've done for the past involved in the past 6 months or so. And she was mentioning earlier, one of the key things were the meetings that we were able to do here in Springfield, and also the city was very kind to allow us to have some of those meetings here and back in December. And it was to develop that charter on how to have the conversations between the stakeholders and EPA and Ohio EPA and potential responsible parties. That was the goal of the charter. So that was finalized and approved finally in March of 2023. That charter is publicly available, so if anybody wants to look at it, like the 3 goals that Jenny mentioned earlier from the charter are on the first pages of the charter. So anybody that's curious about that, I invite them to take a look at it on our website. And some of the other efforts that we've done here for community involvement, basically since then, we've been providing a monthly report that's also publicly available, and says kind of what the progress has been done on site. So those reports are also there on site on the website. So please invite anybody to take a look at them. And right now, going forward with our community involvement efforts, we're doing tonight's meeting. We have a couple of meetings tomorrow as well, and meeting on the Northwestern High School tomorrow, public meeting. So we want to make sure that everybody is aware of the work that's being done behind the scenes, and also that what we're very excited about is being able to do to begin the fieldwork activities for the remedial design for the planning this summer. And as Bob Rule mentioned, the plan is to get that started on June 19th, the week of June 19th. So we wanted everybody to be aware of that. Some more of the things that we've been working on as well. We recently just finished a fact sheet that was shared with the stakeholders group for input, and has been finalized, and it's also online. So most of those documents are available there in the on the sections document and data. So if you go to our website and go on the left column to section documents, you can find many of these documents. And also, we're planning to, the RISA and the technical group is planning to meet with some of the first responders when they get mobilized on site to provide them an update on the activities that are going to be taking place, so they're familiarized with the activities, the people, the names, the phone numbers, contacts, so everybody's aware of who they could contact if they have questions or if there are any issues. So we're happy to do that as well. So like I mentioned earlier, in addition to the community involvement efforts, there's information about the background, the history, and the activities taking place in the on the website. And just for everybody's awareness, if anybody wanted to know what who's part of the charter for the stakeholders, we have the City of Springfield, we have the Clark County, German Township, Ohio EPA, People for Safe Water, the potential responsible parties, RISA 2, Tremont City, and of course US EPA. We currently have 8 members, but it's definitely open to additional people and group that may have pertinent interest. And then the stakeholders themselves will decide if additional groups are welcome and can participate in the charter. So with that, also wanted to say another thing that we've been doing is as we have been receiving questions from the community and from stakeholders, we have developed a list. I know earlier when we met with some people were a little bit concerned about providing questions to us, and we said, well, at that point we wouldn't be able to necessarily address all of them because it's a process that as the remedial design is developed, as a remedial action takes place, then we can answer more of those questions. But we told them that those questions that they were submitting, they would not be forgotten, and that we would be addressing them as the process move forward. So here are just an example of 4 questions that we recently received and from the community, but I believe the Springfield Commissioner sent to us as examples, and we have added this to that list as well. That list is also on the website, it's publicly available, so if anybody wants to know what questions have been asked, please take a look at them. If anybody has additional questions, please email them to me and I'll be happy to add them to that list. And as they're being answered, we're also putting that information on the website as well. So just some of these topics, these questions have been talked about throughout the presentation, and we are in a point where we can talk a little bit about them. So that's what we just provide them as examples, and Bob will provide a little bit of clarity on those questions as examples of what we have done. So, Bob, please.
All right. So one of the first questions was, what will be done to protect the water supply during the cleanup process? Again, that goes to the what I was referring to as the well inventory. We want to make sure that we have adequate wells in the right locations so that we can monitor both during our work effort as well as post-remedy for the operation and maintenance period. There'll be more best management practices as we go, but that's probably the biggest one, is to make sure that the network of wells is appropriate. What happens to the waste currently in Tremont City, considering events in East Palestine? I assume that means with regard to disposal. Right. And I think we're a little bit different. We have disposal facilities that we've used all over. Also, this is not an emergency response. We're actually going to be characterizing and we'll have a list of those constituents in the soils that will be going off site. Whereas I think in East Palestine they were just shipping soils to a facility. What caused some of the problems, but we'll do a characterization of all the soils leaving the site. When will things start happening at the site? The week of June 19th, again, is the current plan for mobilizing to start some of these pre-designs to begin the remedial design itself. And I think the last bullet is one that like Adrian said, we'll develop as we go. I can't give you an estimated completion now until we see what we have, until we get the design completed and actually start the cleanup. It makes a difference on whether there's the same number of drums that the record of decision out there, or is there less, is there more? That could certainly change the timelines.
Thank you, Bob. And some of these questions are partially answered as we're at this point, and as we are able to do it. We make notes of that as well on the spreadsheet. And as Jenny mentioned earlier, currently the estimated time frame for the remedial design itself, the completion just for the remedial design, is 2025. But of course, that could change depending on what things are encountered through this process. So I just wanted to show a little bit. So that the square on the bottom part, that's just a picture of that list of questions. This is only a portion of them. So basically, we place the question and then we provide the answers and the dates when those are provided. So people are aware when we are able to tackle and answer those questions. And just on the top rectangle, you can see basically where you can find those things, like I was mentioning earlier in the site documents and data section. you can find this spreadsheet and other documents as well.
The response provided, or Adrian, the response provided on this sheet may be a summary of something that we've said during one of our meetings together or at some other point, but it will reflect what the response.
And if anybody has a question or needs more information, like I said, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to provide that. My contact information, phone number, and email, it's there at the website as well. Okay. So basically, that covers our presentation. So I don't know if we have any additional questions, Commissioner.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for being here and updating us on what's going on. We also have some guests that I would like to introduce who are in our audience tonight who've been involved in this, some for many, many years. Start here in front with People for Safe Water, Marilyn Welker, raise your hand, Marilyn, and Larry Ricketts, and of course, Health Commissioner Charles Patterson. Good to see all of you. We also have joining us this evening, representing Congressman Turner's office, Gene Saunders. Gene, good to see you. I met earlier today with P.J. Riley, who is the staffer for us from Congressman Kerry's office, and briefed him, and he said, keep up the good work. We are expecting State Senator Bob Hackett and State Rep Bernie Willett. There's Bob. We didn't know if you guys would get out of that state budget meeting or not, Bob, so it's really good to see you. Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming. We also have German Township Trustee Rod Koffenbarger. Rod. Former State Representative Kyle Kaler. And former Commissioner, City Commissioner Karen Duncan. So welcome all of you. We appreciate you being here. I do have one question. Can you make this presentation available to the city so we can put it on our website? Is that possible?
Yes, we're planning to do that. I know a lot of those slides we'll be sharing on the following days as well. But we can share it after this visit in June.
Okay, Brian can hook you up with the people who can make that happen. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
Oh, Larry has.
Yeah, I guess.
My question concerns Ohio EPA. Ohio EPA declined to sign off on the consent decree. So my question is, and it's a multi-part question. Even though they declined to sign off on it, by law, they're required to be a part of this process. So I'd like to know if you know how deeply they're going to be involved. Are they going to be involved during the various stages of construction? Are they going to be involved in looking at the information on the results of the monitoring well testing? And will they be at the site? We need as many eyes and ears at the site during this entire process as we can get. And having Ohio EPA out there is, the health department is going to be a part of the monitoring and be at the site. But do you know, since Ohio EPA is not here tonight, do you know, how involved are they going to be? And I also need to know how good is your working relationship with Ohio EPA at this point on this particular project?
So Ohio EPA representative will be at the public meeting tomorrow. There are 2 points of contact that I've been working with there, Chuck Mellon and Scott Glum. They both have extensive Superfund experience. They have seen these documents and they've given them to some of their experts, and they've actually already provided us a few comments that we're planning on working through before the field work begins. So I would say I have a good working relationship with them. Especially Chuck, he has historical knowledge. My understand he was out here back. There was some type of mediation that took place, maybe during the ESD process. And he seems to have pretty extensive knowledge about some of the hydrogeologic work, because I've asked him a few questions just about things that have come up in my review of technical document. They have committed resources to review documents, and I can't commit resources on their end. Obviously, we're US EPA, but I know that they have offered to help out with field oversight work if that's something that we need. And if there's a request from the community to want them to do more, I think that's something that we should definitely follow up with right after this meeting, to make sure that, if you would like them to have a more active role, to see what they can do, to provide those types of resources.
When the project is finished and we're going to be, the wells will be monitored in perpetuity, is that going to be an Ohio EPA function, or is that a US EPA function?
That's actually a RESA 2 function with US EPA oversight.
Okay, and the health department, I'm sure, will get copies of the results every time that tests are taken. And can you tell me just a ballpark figure how often that would happen?
Some sites we have done semi-annual. After a few years, if things are good, you can go to annual sampling, but typically.
And annual every yearly or
Yearly.
by yearly? Okay.
Two, a lot of that will be dictated by the O&M plan. So there's this first look at the wells that are out there, and that's going to look at things like groundwater flow rate, the concentrations of constituents in water. Based on that information, that would dictate how frequently you need to go out, right? So then you'd come up with this well monitoring network in a near area where you know that there's contamination. But on top of that, there's something at all Superfund sites called Sentry wells. So then you step out on top of that, we have to bound the contamination, and then you put in Sentry wells where it shows that there's no contamination to see if the contamination is flowing that direction. But the frequency of it would probably be difficult to tell right now, because a lot of that's going to be dictated based on whatever baseline sampling happens, before the remedial action and during the remedial action. So
Well, the reason this is brought up is because, we've had these monitoring wells out there for decades.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see when you do the survey of the wells, how many of them are actually still usable. But we don't think, as a community, we don't think enough monitoring has happened in the past with the site as it is now. And now we're going to be basically breaking open the egg, and the new cell will be one large cell, if I'm correct on that, Bob. And I think that monitoring on a more regular basis and more vigorous reporting on it is going to be something we really want to see.
And one of the things that we'll need to do is, as part of the design, before we actually do the remedial action, there'll be a round or two of sampling of that well network, just to get a baseline, just to make sure that when we do break the egg, as you say, it doesn't spill.
Thank you.
I commit to making sure that we have resources available to make sure that there's a competent well monitoring network in place that makes sure the Springfield Aquifer and the Greater Miami Aquifer are protected. We will make sure that we have multiple experts looking at this at the US EPA level. Ohio EPA has told me that they'll make resources available if I have technical questions about it. Got my two contractors right here. Joe's a hydrogeologist. He has expert hydrogeologists. We will sit down as frequently as you need to sit down with us to make sure that you're comfortable and you feel like the aquifer is protected. You have that guarantee from me as long as I'm involved with this project.
I hope you remain involved in the project for a long time because I will say I've been dealing with this site for a long time, and the actual communications just in the last couple of years since you've come on board is so much better than what we've had in the past. And you've been very good about making phone calls and keeping us up to date, and we really appreciate that, and we'd like to see that continue.
Thank you.
And I would add to, recognizing what Commissioner Estrop said about Mark and the loss of Mark, we feel that locally as well, just the technical expertise that he brought to this effort. And so the city, as we were committed to hiring an environmental attorney that's helped throughout to the where we're at today, the city's also committed to working to secure a technical expert as a consultant to help carry some of that burden as well. So we are working on that. I know Chris Moore, our service director, has already had conversations to identify who that might be because obviously this is a critically important project to our community, and so we're committed to securing that.
Is there a motion to end this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Ms. Phillip,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
thank you all very much.
Yes.
We have about 4 minutes before the scheduled public hearing, so we can get things wrapped up and for you.
I get it.
222 to 226, 228 to 230, and 244 West Pleasant Street and 420 South Lowry Avenue from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residential District to CI1 Intensive Commercial District and 238, 240 West Pleasant Street from CO1 Commercial Office District to CI1 Intensive Commercial District was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on April 21, 2023.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes,
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant is requesting to rezone subject parcels to expand existing business. The applicant had purchased parcels from Clark County Land Bank and has plans to store equipment and have a fenced parking lot. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as mixed-use low intensity. As the applicant intends to screen and fence future expansions, the proposed rezoning will not be detrimental to surroundings. The CO1 zoning to south provides transition between residential uses to the south. West Pleasant Street is classified as 80-foot secondary arterial public right-of-way, and South Lowry Avenue is classified as 60-foot wide collector public right-of-way by Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. The alleyways surrounding subject parcels were vacated in 2019 and 2018. The alleyway vacated in 2018 per ordinance number 18221 has reserved easements for Spectrum and Ohio Edison. Any proposed structures such as fences and sheds will have to be reviewed for zoning compliance and may require building permit reviews. Return reports from city staff state no objections and recommend approval, with city manager's office commenting that rezoning allows for expansion of business from the north. The city manager's office encourages infill activity near city core. Planning and Zoning Division commented that the parcels are owned by Springfield Acme Electric Company, for which the owner vacated the alleyways and is requesting rezoning. The owner had approached Board of Zoning Appeals for variances in 2019 as well. It will be the owner's responsibility to locate and request removal of any utility easements prior to any construction on subject parcels. Based on above analysis, staff recommends approval of applicant's request to rezone parcels to an intensive commercial district. The request was recommended approval by the City Planning Board, and there were no questions, concerns from neighbors at the meeting. There was a question from one of the neighbors. They inquired whether the rezoning would be residential or commercial, which was resolved. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I just want to make sure I understood. There was a discussion about residential, commercial, but the issue was resolved. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, so, yeah,
So you've had no other objections? at
no
this
other
point?
objections, just a
Okay.
question.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. The city commission meeting is called to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrad?
Here?
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rue? Mr. Copeland?
Here. Please rise for the invocation and and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our God, we're grateful for the opportunity to make decisions for the people of Springfield. Help us to do it well this evening. May we have a successful solution to the barrel fill. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice. Is there a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Clerk will proceed with first readings.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.935 acre at the northeast corner of West Pleasant Street and South Lowry Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residential District and CO1 Commercial Office District to CI1 Intensive Commercial District. Authorizing the city manager to enter into an employment incentive agreement with Liberty Remodeling Company to incentivize the renovation of its facility located at 25 Snyder Street to create employment and new investment in the city, authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement the said employment incentive agreement. Amending ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing Chapter 165 entitled Airport Advisory Board by amending the term limits of its board members. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the Planning and Zoning Code Update Project with ZoneCo LLC for an amount not to exceed $160,905. Authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the purchase of a mobile command unit from Tesco Specialty Vehicles LLC for an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Any questions or comments on first readings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 165-23, really don't have a question, just a comment. We sincerely appreciate the service of all the people on the Airport Advisory Board. They're doing a great job volunteering their time on behalf of the people of Springfield, and we do appreciate it as our airport continues to grow and get busier.
Anyone else?
I just hope that that doesn't discourage you. On some of our boards in the past, we've had problems getting people to serve on those boards, and the Airport Advisory Board happened to be one of them. If you owned an airplane, they wanted to be involved, and they wanted to see what was going on. I just hope that that does not hurt the participation, so we might have to revisit that at another time.
Absolutely, but I will tell you with the work that's going on as a result of Tom Franson and Seth and the entire staff at the airport, the people out there involved in general aviation who serve on this board are very excited to be a part of what's going on, right? Because the airport moving forward, getting better. We've got some grants later on in the agenda, but they've just been great in terms of their service and ideas.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments on first readings? Clerk will proceed with second readings.
Vacating the first 15-foot wide east-west and north-south alley south of Hillcrest Avenue between North Claremont Avenue and Bel Air Avenue and extending to the north flat line of Water Park Addition.
I'll move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning approximately 10.95 acres located at Auburn Avenue and Ohio Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from Springfield Township R1 Residential District to City EC1 Educational Campus District.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning approximately 74.6 acres located at 570 East Level Lane, Springfield, Ohio, from Springfield Township R1 Residential District to City EC1 Educational Campus District.
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
This item and the previous item speak to the educational campus. This is actually expanding Clark State campus and in specific for the expansion of the Global Impact STEM School. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct, Commissioners. Both of those items, one, make Clark State's campus and properties more consistent with our other college campus, Wittenberg and the EC1 designation. But this specifically allows for that expansion of the Global Impact STEM Academy on Clark State's campus located on Level Lane.
I think it's also important to know that expansion in part is a function of them adding currently the career pathway at Giza, the Global Impact STEM Academy, is ag bioscience, and they've been very successful at that. But they're adding a second career pathway, which ties into our previous discussion with the airport, because they're adding aviation and aerospace technology. So the student in this area will have the option of attending a school that focuses on aerospace and aviation, which is a growing business right here in Springfield. So by doing this, we're building a nice pipeline for people wanting to do business in this area with qualified employees coming out of the educational. Thank you.
Anything else from commission? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the annexation of a city-owned parcel at 3925 South Charleston Pike to the city of Springfield, Ohio, and authorizing Jason D. Irick, Assistant Law Director, to prosecute the proceedings necessary to effectuate the annexation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing a contribution to Kiwanis Club of Springfield, Ohio in the amount of $5,000 to support the Springfield Blues and Jazz Festival.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I just want to say it's a great event, and thanks to Kiwanis again for sponsoring it.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for monthly access fees for marked radio communication system equipment from the Ohio Department of Administrative Services, Office of Information Technology, for an amount not to exceed $165,600 for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024.
I'll
So-
move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Okay, my computer just slowed down on me, but it just came back. So I'm sorry, who made the motion? Thank you. Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement for construction of county water project with the Board of County Commissioners of Clark County, Ohio, relating to the extension of Northridge Water Line Loop.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I'm wondering if the staff could give us a little more information about this.
Yes, I'll ask our Service Director, Chris Moore, to come to the podium.
Yes, Commissioner, this is a project that we received a grant for from the Ohio Department of Administrative Services, and it will provide a second feed from our water system to the Northridge water system. Currently, it's only served from one direction, so it's a dead-end water line. And as we've worked through the design, what we realized is that line would be best if it were owned by Clark County and not by the city. So we are doing the design, we're going to work through the construction, and then this will dedicate that to them when it's done. And they will reimburse all of our administrative costs up to $200,000.
So, again, as I understand it, what we're talking about is while the line will be owned by the county, it will be designed and built to meet our specification and our standard.
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the sale of real property located on East Main Street to Jose Salas.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city to retain membership in the Ohio Benefits Cooperative Incorporated Regional Council of Government to participate in its OBC Medical Purchasing Cooperative, and authorizing the city manager, law director, director of finance, and personnel director to do all things necessary for compliance with OBC bylaws and the Jefferson Health Plan Agreement, all to provide medical and prescription drug coverage benefits for the city's employees, authorizing expenditures necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under the said bylaws and JHP agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing a contribution to Green Township in the amount of $200,000 for the purpose of repaving Air Park Drive and Greenfield Drive in Air Park, Ohio.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved, seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Based on Green Township's budget, this makes a lot of sense that it can get done
Yeah.
in a timely manner.
And shows the working relationship between Green
Right.
Township and the city as the airport continues to grow. Good news is it's continuing to grow. Bad news is all the traffic on the road requires some repairs. So,
Yep.
but I do thank our township supervisors in Green.
Sure.
And your leadership, Kevin.
And this does not alleviate their responsibility once done maintaining.
Correct.
And that's very important.
Right.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefor, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept, if awarded, a fiscal year 2023 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Award in the amount up to $23,550.93 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, authorizing the city manager, finance director, law director, and chief of police to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary, fulfill the city's obligations under said grant, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Shelley Company for the runway 1533 pavement rehabilitation and lighting replacement rebid project for an amount not to exceed $5,058,676, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving the execution of a fiscal year 2021 Supplemental Airport Improvement Program grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration in an amount up to $2,277,777 and authorizing the city manager, law director, airport manager, and the director of finance to do all things necessary for the execution of the agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Katie, where exactly does this $7.2 million come from for the last two items that we just approved for our airport here in Springfield?
From the two grants previously that were just on the agenda from FAA and
It's
state
like federal.
funding.
That's what we want to hear, federal.
You're welcome.
And I
Huge.
was wondering, Tom, if you could go into a little more detail about what will be going on at the airport
Related
as a
to these
result
items.
of all of this work.
Yeah, so the first item was just releasing the contract for the repaving work that's going to happen on runway 1533. The other two are the two grants provided by the FAA, to Commissioner O'Neill's point, all covered by the FAA. So there is a local match of about $157,000 that the city is going to put in, and then $157,000 from ODOT Aviation. But definitely a good return on our investment there to maintain that runway. But that 1533 is a critical runway. That's the crosswind runway that we fought hard to protect and keep when we took that over from the Guard. So it's good that the FAA recognizes that and supporting that repaving. And the
They
lights,
have partners.
the lights are getting replaced as part of that project as well.
I would also like to point out, we really appreciate the support of our congressmen and our senators in working with us to go after this grant money. Their support is critical in our success. I also want to thank the staff for doing a great job.
Yeah, Seth Timmerman, our
Absolutely.
airport manager out there, is working hand in hand with our consultant, Wolpert Aviation, to line up these. It takes years, as you know, to do the engineering and work before we apply for the grants, then years to get the actual funding in place. So it's really about a 4-year project by the time we bring it to you to get the funding approved. But thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes?
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving the execution of an airport improvement program grant agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration in an amount up to $2,839,506 and authorizing the city manager, law director, airport manager, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the execution of the agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with R.B. Jurgens Contractors Incorporated for the US 40 ditch improvement project for an amount not to exceed $560,540.20 and declaring an emergency therein.
Adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill? Ms.
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 2 to the contract between the city and A&B Asphalt Corporation for the Eagle City Road paving project to decrease the contract in an amount not to exceed $13,283.07 for a total amount not to exceed $472,010.56 and to extend the project completion date to May 19, 2023, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 2 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved. So
Second.
moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrad?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and Outdoor Enterprises, LLC, for the CLA Yellow Spring Street reconstruction Phase 1 project, PID number 109491, increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $281,483.91 for a total amount not to exceed $3,802,391.66, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
big project out there,
I agree.
big one.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill? Ms.
Yes,
Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 2 to the contract with J.L. Cook General Contractors for the City Hall parking garage repairs and plaza redesign project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $14,970 for a total amount not to exceed $6,322,018.33 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Any questions from commission? Anybody by the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
yes,
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the fiscal officer to create a super blanket purchase order as authorized in resolution number 6152 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
The next 2 items were added to the agenda, authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the purchase of 2 2023 Chevrolet Express Commercial Cutaway 4,500 vans from Ola Fleet Sales for an amount not to exceed $87,144 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I'm just curious, were these made at Navistar by any chance? Do you know?
Yes, and I'll ask Matt Smith to speak a little bit more specifically to the project itself, but this is for the re-chassis of medic units.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, no, these were not made there. What this was is very similar to the recent police cruisers that we managed to find. We found 2 chassis that were unwanted, and we gave them a home. So we're picking them up, and they will be used for the remounting project for new medic units in the city in the next year.
Great.
Super. Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes,
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Concurring with the appointment by the city manager of Jacob King to the position of fire chief and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Would you like to make any?
Yeah, before the commission votes, just to explain, so after the vote, assuming it's in the affirmative, we'll ask Jacob to step up. Jill, our clerk, will provide the oath. I will also provide with his official badge for the Springfield Fire Rescue Division, but I'm excited. So as similar to the police chief process, we had a consultant help us conduct a nationwide search. We had 20 applicants apply, a very competitive field. And at the end of the day, again, Springfield deserves the best. And I believe the best candidate rose to the top and was selected for this position. And so excited for what that means for the future as we take the next steps as a Springfield Fire Rescue Division and as an organization in serving our community. So welcome Jacob to the team, and excited to have him as a part of the City of Springfield team. He's been very involved in the community through his work with Wright-Patterson and also Bethel Township. But we're excited to have him as a part of our team now.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I'll have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jacob King,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution laws
the Constitution laws
of the State of Ohio,
the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances, the Charter and ordinances
the Charter and ordinances
of Springfield, Ohio,
of Springfield, Ohio.
and I will discharge the duties
I will discharge the duties
of the Office of Fire Chief
of the Office of Fire Chief
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities. Thank you for this opportunity, Mayor, Commission, distinguished colleagues, fellow firefighters, community members, and to all of my dear family and friends. I stand before you today with an immense sense of pride and gratitude. It is my great honor to accept this position of Fire Chief. I cannot express to you how much this means to me, as it's a culmination of years of hard work and dedication and commitment to communities. I wanted to start by thanking the members of the selection committee, City Manager Brian Heck, for their confidence in me. I'm humbled to have been selected as your fire chief. I promise to do everything in my power to exceed all of your expectations. I also want to express my deep appreciation for all the firefighters, officers, and staff members who have been working tirelessly to ensure the safety of this city and the security of our communities. Your dedication and professionalism inspire me, and I really look forward to working alongside of you each and every day. I also want to thank my family, especially my wife Heather, who's here, my daughter Corey and her husband Nick and their son Mac, my daughter Kiana and her fiance Jacob for being here. I think it was key, their support, to help me through this entire journey. Your love and encouragement and understanding have been my pillars of strength. I would not be here without you and your unwavering support. As your new fire chief, I accept the role with a deep sense of responsibility and obligation. I am committed to providing our community with the highest level of service and protection. To achieve this, I promise to work tirelessly to ensure that we have the latest technology, training methods available to all our members. I will encourage teamwork and collaboration amongst our members and with other city agencies. I'm also available to listen to any and all concerns and suggestions and ideas of how we could do things better. Lastly, I would like to dedicate this achievement to all our firefighters, both past and present, who have dedicated their lives to serving our community. You are all the unsung heroes who answer the call of duty day and night, putting your lives on the line to protect others. I stand on your shoulders today and tomorrow as we move forward. In conclusion, I am honored to accept this position and serve this community as your new fire chief, and thank you for your trust and support. I pledge to give my best efforts to this role every day, so thank you.
Our fire department is very important to the city of Springfield, not just because they fight fires, but because they also do a whole lot of ambulance stuff. And we look forward to your service. Thank you, sir. Best wishes. Okay? That concludes the agenda, right?
It does.
Are there other comments from the city commission?
Yes. I do have a question, thank you. Back on item number, give me a second, I have it starred. And I know you guys know where I'm going with it. Item number 16823. I wanted to ask, what would those funds be used for the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Award, if we did receive them?
Yes, so I will ask Chief Elliott if she would like to answer that question.
Good evening, Commission. Mayor Copeland, thank you. Thank you to the Commission. So Commissioner Phillips, what this is this is assistance and funding for half of the bulletproof vests that we purchase for our officers, not just newly hired officers, but for the expiration or the ones that are coming up on expiration to replace for our officers.
Great, thank you.
It's funding that we are very grateful for and to help supplement those costs because they become pretty pricey. And this is my segue. Thank you for asking me to come to the podium because I want to say thank you to Chief King and congratulations to you. I look very forward to us working together in a collaborative partnership. Thank you.
Chief, before you leave, what's the average cost of one of those vests?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I was looking that up, and it varies, and we obviously work through state contract pricing with certain vendors, but anywhere from, with the level 3 vest, one of the highest levels that we purchase, it would be between, I think, this is going to be a guess, I can get the exact for you if you need it, between 500 and 800, and that's probably being a little on the low end.
How many do we need active, so one for each officer? How many are
Yes.
getting ready to expire right now?
So we have tried to be very fiscally responsible in how we handle that, and because it's a 5-year expiration, we try to work on a rotation, so we're not taxing the city and our funding with new ones every 5 years.
Cool.
Thank you.
So if we get the grant, we can expect about 25.
Yes, that'd be half of it, 25, roughly 22,000. I have to look.
We'll take it.
Thank you.
Yeah, amen.
Commissioner Phillips, thanks for bringing that up. I'm not sure, Chief, that not everyone in the community knows that, as you pointed out, those vests do have an expiration date on them.
Yes, sir.
And in order to keep the men and women of our police division safe, we obviously need to replace those once they have, once their full life has been used.
Yes, certainly. So, and like I said, I think we're on a 5-year rotation now, currently.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner.
Sure.
Anything else from the commission? Anyone in the audience want to address us? Guess we might as well adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.